about why Adani discussions by Senate, Parliament are a waste of time and money. You must have been watching a lot of discussion with seemingly very courageous members of Parliament, the Senate, using heavy words, throwing very heavy words at the executive, until you might even think that there's a war between Parliament and the executive. In fact, even the discussion between Sifuna and Badi looked like even ODM is fighting itself. It was a lot of drama until you have a feeling like, wow, for the first time, Parliament is working very hard for us. Senate is working very hard for us. But Kenya, let me tell you what, it is as sad as it is that it is just waste of time and money, and your time is going as you are watching those things on the screen, or the truth is that the exact deals are happening at the back end. It is just a smoke screen you're watching. And let me start by saying that it is very sad. We have a president who is at war with his own country. President Ruto's corruption strategy takes a three-pronged approach. It is land, sea, and air attack. The president began his political career as an MP, and it is evident he had several land deals even before being the MP for Eldoret North. As a deputy president, we will not forget the Western Hotel whereby he had to tear gas school pupils to get the land and build the hotel. He earned the name Arab Mashamba, but Kenyans had not known what they are preparing for. This is what I call land attack. The number of land grabbing cases in Nairobi, Mombasa, Taita Taveta, Thika is amazing. In fact, I must report that Ruto resolved the long-standing land dispute for Kandara Residents Association by putting a condition that for them to get their title issues resolved, they must allocate him 500 acres piece of land under the Le Mountain Farms, which they did. And the title issues were resolved, and he got 500 acres of land in Thika at Del Monte Farm for free. The next attack was a sea attack. The president has taken over the control of all Kenyan ports and even ensured it is his cronies who run them. The latest attack is now air attack by taking over all Kenyan airports through Adani scam. The land, sea, and air attack by President leaves Kenya completely vulnerable as President Ruto project of being not only the richest person in Kenya, but one who owns Kenya by controlling land, sea, and air. When a book will eventually be written, Who Owns Kenya, William Ruto will be number one, and will be having the controlling shareholders of Who Owns Kenya. But now he is in the book of the people who rule Kenya. Remember all that President Ruto wants, he gets them through tear gas. If tear gas fails, bullet. To grab the land, tear gas hit school children. To take over ports, tear gas was swallowed by Kenyans. KAA workers also drank lots of tear gas. For the finance bill, bullets brought down over 75 comrades. Until now, over 135 have disappeared. The way his election was by tear gas and bullets is the way his presidency will be remembered as a presidency that has the highest number of tear gas canisters thrown, bullets thrown, unlawful arrests, and abductions. And I can even say that the Nyayo torture chambers are in town. They are somewhere in town. They are not in Nyayo House, but they are somewhere in town. That's why those being abducted are being held there. But my greatest disappointment is not actually from the president, but from Parliament. That's why I told you that the debates you're seeing in Parliament and Senate against the executive, especially the CSS, on the deals that are going on in the country, they are smoke screens. Imagine we have 349 MPs in Kenya who are supposed to represent Kenyans, legislate, and offer oversight. Unfortunately, these 349 MPs are completely unable to stop or reverse land, sea, and air attack against the Kenyan sovereignty. This is because they are dining with the executive. Parliament is the weakest arm, if not the weakest leg or link of the three arms of government. Currently, the National Assembly, which is Parliament and Senate, is helping Kenyans in shedding crocodile tears for the several government problems created by the very MPs that are now talking very tough on Citizen TV, talking very tough in Senate and Parliament. Let's take, for instance, the Kenyan debt problem. It's the members of Parliament who in 2014 expunged the requirement to borrow through appropriation by Parliament to allow the executive, led by the President, borrow without any parliamentary oversight. That made our debt stock move from 2.7 trillion in 2014 to 9.8 trillion in 2022, and now it is over 11.9 trillion, which means a 9 trillion difference in 10 years, while it took us 51 years to accumulate 2.7 trillion debt. But what they do now is sit in Parliament and shed crocodile tears as the executives overborrow, borrowing our future while putting nothing to development that can spur our economy's capacity to repay. Hence, it is followed by overtaxation, which the same Parliament passed, both of them through finance bills and budgets. The second case to tell you why Senate and MPs are only shedding crocodile tears is the Adani deal. Adani was already in Kenya with Chirchir through when Chirchir was Minister of Transport. Even the Kentraco deal was already there. Before Chirchir left Energy, Kentraco is with Energy, Chirchir had already brought Adani here. So even what we are seeing on screen is too little, too late. So Adani deal is based on a PPP Act, Public-Private Partnership Act. According to PPP Act of 2013, National Assembly had an oversight role on all PP contracts awards. But the same National Assembly that gave up their oversight role by repealing the PPP Act of 2013 and replacing it with the PPP Act of 2021, which is unconstitutional, and passed it in Parliament in broad daylight by the so-called lawmakers. How can lawmakers give their lawmaking role? The repealing of the PPP Act of 2023 was on the premise of removing the Parliament from the law. The architect of this evil change of law was Chris Kirigwa, the current Director General of the PPP at the National Treasury and Economic Planning, who was actually with the CS Mbadi defending the very Adani deal that he was the architect of ensuring it can happen without Parliament oversight. Now you can see the lawmakers accepted to be removed from law. They are not ashamed of reducing their oversight role, yet their number and salaries increases. The argument was that Parliament creates bureaucracies and adds on the time of concluding a deal. But in the process, the oversight and scrutiny of Parliament on all government assets, which is a requirement, was lost. That is how a public business can be transacted in less than 1 month under obscure circumstances because of the repealing of that act. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, you understand how Adani deal took place at a supersonic speed. In that regard, let Parliament, and I can say Parliament should stop making Kenyans and taking them through a PR exercise by putting smoke screens that are that they are deliberating on their Adani scam, since their parliamentary entertainment have no material consequences on even stopping a Adani deal, because they had given that right to the executive. This can be done with the treasury, and Parliament has no powers whatsoever to stop Adani or even to oversight. If they can talk about it, they can just discuss like anybody can discuss about weather, but they cannot change the weather because that is left to God. They are only keeping Kenyans on the smoke screen as the airports go to Ruto and his Indian business criminals. This is because no business can be transacted on the current law unless the oversight role by Parliament is reinstated by the very Parliament. In that regard, instead of wasting time that they are questioning CS Chirichir and CS Mbadi, Kirigwa directment, I think it is important for us to highlight a very important factor. I just want to compare SHIF and NHIF, and it is possible to talk about SHIF and NHIF without comparing the two presidents who are presiding over the two. Remember, Mwai Kibaki presided over NHIF launch, and William Ruto is now presiding over SHIF. Now, you heard that SHIF is an improvement from NHIF. No. I can tell you now why Kibaki's NHIF is superior to Ruto's SHIF. We have heard on several occasions when President Ruto says that he is President Kibaki's student. But since Kenyans have known that President Ruto is not just a liar to win votes in Kenya, but also he has actually graduated as an international liar. When you see the visit in the US, visit to China, a visit in Germany, it's become very clear. Because when he travels to foreign countries, the media in those countries have to switch on their truth meters, lest they report what could shame the world or shame the world. As one of Kibaki's economic advisors, I can tell you without honesty that Ruto is the exact opposite of Kibaki. Just to give an example, for example, as Kibaki's cabinet, I talked to one of Kibaki's cabinet. He spoke, you know that Kibaki spoke very little. If you even watch documentary about Kibaki's cabinet, he spoke very little during cabinet meetings, and he didn't address the media after cabinet meetings. But we all know that William Ruto chairs cabinet meetings, and actually instead of chairing, actually is the main contributor, because you cannot be chairing a meeting and you're the main contributor. And he talks throughout the cabinet meetings until some of the cabinet members go for those cabinet meetings with very voluminous notebooks and pens, and they take a lot of notes. So they have actually realized that cabinet meetings looks like a classroom with lots of lectures that ends up with a press conference. And you could see this press conference even when Ruto was lecturing members of parliament or his cabinet, telling them he knows more than they know in their own ministries. So this is not anything secret. So Ruto cannot be termed as Kibaki's student. Kibaki was on his own class. Ruto, of course, is on his own class for different reasons, different perspectives, and different contexts. So the greatest evidence comes from education and healthcare in Kenya. So Kibaki improved university funding terms from only public universities which used to benefit from help to a point when now even private universities were now actually gaining from health. Of course, Uhuru Kenyatta took this thing even to things like TVETs. He expanded much better. So the help has been more on the expansion mode. But Ruto now is changing totally to make university education more expensive, which has led to lower university enrollment. He's created things like, I would call them um, bands. These bands also is over segmentation, and this segmentation are not very clear, and they are very obscure how you use them. And actually, even these segmentations are also trying to stratify university students. For example, if you are being called a comrade of band 1, comrade of band 2, comrade of band 3, it does not add up. So what I'm trying to say here is that the education system has been made more expensive and there's less enrollment. In healthcare, Kibaki launched NHIF with government budget for a cost of less than 1 billion Kenya shillings. But Ruto is launching his SHIF with Safaricom's money at a cost of 104 billion shillings. Has inflation changed that much? But why take Safaricom's money when Safaricom is a publicly listed company? Is this not going to affect the shares of Safaricom in the boss? So the key difference in the patients is on the patient's benefits. Actually, in this NHIF, the key difference is on what are the patient's benefits, especially maternal health. So SHIF puts a limit of 10,000 shillings for normal delivery for mothers, and for CS, cesarean section, a limit is 30,000, which means if your normal delivery goes beyond 10,000 shillings, either you have to co-pay, add in some money. Remember, NHIF, there was no co-paying. NHIF contract, every hospital had to sign there is no co-paying, which means there was no need to ask patients or customers also to add. It was that if you take the NHIF package, you treated the civil servants and the Kenyans who came with the NHIF card, and you did not have to ask them to pay anything. But with SHIF, the room is there, which means this is now how kickbacks will take place. There will be a lot of corruption taking place between different healthcare facilities, and you look at the NHIF officers offering these things. So that opens a floodgate for corruption. But anyway, forget about the corruption thing. These 30,000 and 10,000 limit for CS and normal delivery respectively will mean that about 90% of private hospitals cannot offer this maternal care to our Kenyan women. With the fact that public healthcare facilities constitute about 40.3% of healthcare service providers, this puts mothers at a very, very high risk. If NHIF maternal healthcare indicators were still very bad, what would we expect with the maternal indicators, with the SHIF being a worse version of NHIF? And let me give you some evidence here. Latest statistics shows that Kenya registers maternal mortality ratio of 355 deaths per 100,000 live births, which is against WHO standards that says that you should do at worst 70 deaths per 100,000 live births. So this is a serious problem, because can you imagine that out of the 100,000 children who are born in Kenya, 355 die and they were born alive. So since public hospitals are so scattered, especially in rural areas, for the mothers who won't be able to afford private hospitals, who have to reach private hospitals, the transport cost might be higher than maternal costs, given that when one gives birth, they are not sick. So they need families to visit them frequently, some taking their favorite food for them to eat. This will be so costly for families because we cannot detect that. You know how people get sick in Africa is that when people get sick, they also just need some love, and this love, giving them in a long distance, is so costly. Mm. So the bottom line is, the solution is just to ensure that healthcare should be 100% free for Kenyans. In order for Kenyans to match the healthcare standards actually set by organizations like WHO. In my view, with Ruto's 4.2 trillion budget, it's possible to offer free healthcare and free education. If Parliament is honest, they should focus on reinstating the provision of 2013 PPP Act that gives Parliament back its teeth in oversighting PPPs. If this is not done, even Kentraco, among other deals under Adani, will be a scam. Even when Opiyo Wandayi says now Adani will invest in energy, all that will pass as they watch. And Opiyo Wandayi knows very well he was minority leader, that he cannot oversight Adani, even as members of parliament. So let parliamentarians tell us what they are doing to reverse, one, the Appropriation Act that requires that before anyone borrows money on behalf of Kenya, they must pass through Parliament and must be approved by Parliament. Secondly, let Parliament come back and be able to oversight the executive on public-private partnership, because public-private partnership has become the next nexus of stealing money from Kenyans.